practice, practice, practice. That's what it's all about in this lecture as we take a deeper look at the VLOOKUP command. We'll start off and take up the solutions from our last lecture, and then we'll give you two more challenges to give you practice on incorporating the VLOOKUP in practical applications. Okay, so bear with me as we go through the solutions from yesterday's problem set. In this first problem, we've using a question we've done before about a bookstore, and they're evaluating the departments by giving them a set evaluation code, okay? And the numbers can go from 1 to 3. And if you receive a 1 evaluation for your department gets a 4% bonus based on the total sales for that department. 2 is a 2%, and unfortunately, if you get a 3, you get no bonus at all. Let's take a look at the solution. This first question is pretty straightforward. I'll slide over to the right where the new material has been entered. So each department has received an evaluation. Those numbers I've written here. Over here, I've created a little lookup table. And yes, we could have used choose on this one because they are nice numbers, 1, 2, 3. But we wanted to practice using the VLOOKUP command. Now, this table I just defined between the region P12 to Q14. I could have also given it a proper name. Either way is acceptable. Let's go up to the actual formula, and it's a VLOOKUP, obviously. R2 is, in this case, the first one, a 1, okay? And we're going to scan this region where the lookup table is located. And then when we find what we want, we'll move over to the second column and extract the percentage. We're going to times that by the 10,264. Okay, and that's how we're going to get this amount. So this first one's a very basic one just to get us rolling into an application of VLOOKUP. Okay, question number 2. I like this question a lot because it incorporates two ideas. We're going to use choose and the VLOOKUP in this one. So it's a music store. They have some musical instruments. They're a little bit old, and depending on their condition now, we're going to reduce the value of these instruments, okay? And we've come up with sort of a table here, a chart, so that a 1 condition, we're going to reduce the price to 60%, all the way down to 5 condition, where we reduce the price to 20% of its value. Now, after we do that, we're also going to say, well, now what's the value of these instruments? And if it's under 100, we're going to throw it away. Between 100 and 499, donate it, and over 500, we're going to sell it. So this, nice numbers, we're going to use the choose formula on that. These not so nice numbers, we're going to use the VLOOKUP. Let's take a look at the solution. All right, here's the spreadsheet, and here are the conditions. All right, so this first one is basically a choose formula. So we take a look at location C4, and depending on whether it's 1 to 5, we're going to make the value 60%, 50, 40, 30, or 20% of its original value, and times that by the original price. And these are the numbers we get. Now, given these numbers, now we have to figure out whether we want to sell it, donate it, or throw it away. And this is where our lookup table comes in. So here is the lookup table we're going to incorporate into our solution. This table here, this time I've given it a formal name and I've called it what. All right, and so let's go look at the formula. So we're on the donate one here. So it's a VLOOKUP of D4. All right, so this new selling price, and we're going to look at the chart, the lookup chart. And if we find something, we're going to move over to the second column. Okay, so it goes through and it works out that some of them are going to be donated. This one's under 100, it's going to be thrown away. This one's 1,500. We're definitely going to try to sell that. It's a lot of money. And it shows you another application, this time of some choose and some VLOOKUP. Now we're on to the last question. And as I've done in a couple of other lectures, this one you have to type in all yourself. I did not put it in the resources, so you'd have to do this one from scratch, okay? And basically it's for a fictitious movie theater. They're tracking how much they're selling of popcorn and drinks and things like that. And they're thinking of maybe charging a bit more. All right, so first of all, you enter in all the information, and then you work out the revenue, so to speak. So you add up all the small popcorn sales. And depending on how much they've sold, they're going to increase the price by 5%, 3%, or if sales are going well, nothing. Here's our spreadsheet, and actually the first thing we need to do is work out what the revenue is before we figure out if we have to raise prices. So this value right here is basically we add up all these numbers, okay, because these are the quantities of small popcorn they sold. This is the price, and this will give us our total revenue, so to speak. So it's a sum of everything in that row times F2, which is the price. Okay, and we do that all the way down. Now it's time to figure out the new price. So let me remind you, over here, 0 really represents the prices that are in the range 0 to 24,999. So that's how you actually write it in your lookup table. The second one is for the prices between 25,000 and 49,999, and the last one is for anything 50,000 and up. Okay, so that's how you've taken this idea and made a lookup table with the appropriate combinations. Okay, so now with that knowledge, let's figure out the new price. So then we work out the new price. We're going to have to figure out, first of all, if this is in one of these categories, and that's going to give us a percentage. And we're going to times that percentage to this, plus add the original amount. Okay, so if you're not sure what I mean, let's say we had to raise this by 10%. We would take 10% of $2, which is 20 cents, add that on to the original $2 to get $2.20. So let's take a look at the math behind this. So we do our lookup, okay, and we look for the magic percentage. If we come back with this 5 or 3 or even 0, we times that by the original F2, okay, the $2 plus F2, okay. So this does a percentage increase plus the original amount to get our final value, which in the first one, because it's over 50,000, we're not going to raise prices. We don't need to. The second one, we do need to raise prices, and some of the other ones, we also raise the prices. And then, of course, the last step, we take a look at the new revenue. So now we're taking a look at the sum of all of these times by this price. Okay, so the first one, the price doesn't change at all. The sum of all these times this new price, it goes to 29,469. Okay, and there's the formula just in case. Okay, it's the sum of all those times the new H2 price. Thanks for bearing with us through those solutions. I hope they were a nice little review and recap of yesterday or the previous lecture. What we're going to do now is give you 2 more challenges. And again, I'm going to get you to do the same thing we've done for a couple of lectures. I'm going to get you to pause the video, give them a try honestly. Okay, the solutions are there also, obviously, but give them a try on your own, and then we'll work through the solutions together. They're even more challenging than these ones, a lot more challenging, and it'll really test your skills and knowledge of VLOOKUP and choose and if statements. Just a quick overview of the problems, and actually, I think the second one is easier than the first one, so maybe you could start with this one first. It's up to you, obviously. We've seen this Shirelli pharmacy before, and in this particular problem, we're going to incorporate some customer discounts, which are from a table, and it's also going to involve a little bit of if statements. So when you load in the source file, I've already created the columns for you here. You're going to have to do, obviously, the math. I've also created another worksheet where I've already pre-typed in for you the table of discounts, okay, that you can use in your VLOOKUP, and you're also going to have to create a pivot table, which I've left obviously blank here, okay, just to get yourself set up. The first problem I think is a bit more challenging, so that's why I said maybe start with the second one first and then come back to this one. This one's for a bicycle shop. It's got a lot of stuff going on, plus I want you to incorporate an H lookup. Haven't done that before, and I'm not even going to show you how to do it. You're going to have to try to figure it out yourself, but let me just give you a couple of hints. So here's an image of the template that I'm going to give you, but it's got some stuff filled in for you already, so you appreciate how it's supposed to work. So I give you a sort of an empty template. This obviously has some stuff in it. I've already created a couple of tables for you that you're going to need to incorporate, and here's another one that you're going to need to incorporate. So here's roughly how it's going to work. You're going to order something from this inventory of kids' toys. So let's pretend I typed in, and I'm hoping this is a kid's toy. Yes, it is. So it should come back and say it's a child's tricycle, pink. It should tell me the weight. I then have to put in myself how many of those I want to order. Let's say I wanted to order 2, and you see how the math's all changing. The other thing that you're going to need to do, and I don't want to click on it because it'll kind of give away the answer, is the shipping and handling. After you determine the total weight of your purchase from this bicycle shop, in this case 54, we're going to have to figure out what does that cost to ship. That's where this comes in. So 54 would be in this category, probably in here, and you have to come back and tell me one of these prices. Now, how come there's 3 different prices? Well, you have to tell me whether you picked FedEx, UPS, or Priority Mail. And in this case, we picked FedEx. If I change that to UPS, that's 3, and the price changes in the shipping and handling. So isn't that kind of cool? So it's a very useful, but a bit more complicated application of VLOOKUP. Okay, so let's stop the video right here. give you a chance to try these out, and then we'll come back and take up the solutions. Hi guys, welcome back. And what we'll do, as I mentioned just before the stop of the video, let's do the second one first because it's a lot easier. So we have this sheet called Client Discount Table, which stores the customer names and the discounts they get if they order from this particular drug company. Let's go back to sales data. So the client discount is going to be based on obviously this value applied to a discount of whatever. So let's take a look at the formula. So in here, we're going to look at C9. We're going to see what the customer's name is and figure out their discount. Okay, so C9 comma customer discount, that's the name of the lookup table, comma 2 times E9, which is in this case 21,546. Okay, and that comes out with that particular discount. Now there's a second discount based on this amount. This one we use an if statement. Okay, basically if this value right here is greater than 20,000, we're going to apply another 7% discount on that amount. So now we've got this client discount because we like you, and then because you ordered a lot, we're giving you another discount, which brings us to the last formula, which is the subtraction of the previous two discounts. So a pretty straightforward solution. We also have a pivot table there. I'm not going to go through that solution. That's pretty basic. I tell you which rows and columns to set up and how to filter based on the customer. Okay, so easy one to start off with. The second one, I'm not just going to load up my pre-made solution. I'm going to work through it from the original so you can see my thought process and everything else. Okay, the bicycle problem. Fairly challenging. Nice practical application. Really shows you the power of VLOOKUP and a bunch of other things we're going to be incorporating within it. So here's the working copy first, which I'm just going to sort of click on just to remind you how it works. So you pick a particular service that you want to use as your carrier to deliver your bicycles, okay, and that'll change this number here, so that has to work. This is where you type in what you want to order, and magically it'll appear with the name and the weight of it. The weight's important, and then you put a quantity. This actually updates from the totals of the weight, so we need to do that. And then the last thing we have to do is work out the shipping and handling, which is based on the carrier that you pick, okay? So that's how it works. We gave you two worksheets, one for these particular tables and another one for the inventory that you can purchase that has the weights and prices there, okay? So that's all the little bits and pieces. So I'm gonna leave this one now and load in a blank one and start from scratch to show you my whole thought process and the formulas I used. Okay, so here's my thought process, and you could have done it in a totally different order. Let's start off and do this part where you type in an item number and it tells you what it is and how much it weighs and what it costs. So that type of stuff involves this worksheet and in particular this entire chart. Okay, so let's highlight all of this information all the way down to there, and we'll give it a name, and I'll call it items. So when I type in, for instance, 1023, I've got to go over one column, so to column 2 to pick out what the actual item is. I've got to go over 3 columns to pick out the weight, and I've got to go over 4 columns to pick out the price. So I've got to remember that. And with that knowledge, I can pull out the bits and pieces that I need for my invoice page. Okay, let's go to the invoice page. And in the invoice page, what I'm going to do now is right there, I'm going to write down our first formula. It's a VLOOKUP, obviously, and bracket, and it's going to be based on B11. And then I'm going to look up the information in my items. And the description, that means you go 2 over. Okay, now nothing's there right now because I haven't typed in an item. Let's just practice putting in an item. Yes, it works. Okay, let's go over to this one. Now the weight is the same formula basically, so it's going to be a V lookup and bracket, and again it's going to be based on B11. We're going to pick from the items, and we're going to pick the third one. Okay, on to unit price. So again, V lookup one more time, bracket B11 comma items comma 4, and that'll give us the price. Okay, next up I'll put in the units, and oh, Mr. Shirelli was nice enough to give you a couple of these things. So I knew this was a fairly easy one to work out. So obviously the number of things you buy times the price gives you that. I work out the total. I also worked out your tax for you at 6% for a final cost. Now there's still some dirty work to do. I worked out your totals for your weights too. I need to figure out the shipping and handling, which is very tricky actually. So let me enter one more item. Let's see an item here. Let's go with 1022. Okay, so I'll go back to here. 1022. Let's go back up here and we're going to incorporate an if statement within the VLOOKUP. So if, and we're going to say B11 equals nothing, then put nothing there. Otherwise, do the actual formula. We need another bracket to finish this off. This probably shouldn't change this answer, but now when we click on this and drag it down, because we need a formula all the way down, we're not going to get an error. So now when we go here and we type in 1022, it works properly, and then we can go to each formula. Actually, we would have to do that for this one too, and for this one, and I will as we continue through the solution. Through the magic of video editing, I've now included those if statements in the weight and the price, and I'll just drag these down just to prove to you that I don't get errors. And click on this one, and we'll also drag it down to prove that I don't get any errors. Oh, and we got to do that over here in a second. We'll fix that up too. This is kind of why I wanted to do this one by hand, to show you what would happen when you do this from scratch. And I want to show you my whole thought process and how, when you see an error, how you fix it. So same problem with this last one we're trying to copy. If the units are 0, when we do the calculations, it's going to mess everything up. So I went up here and again, I added another if statement to check if there was nothing there, then don't do a calculation. If there is, do the calculation, and then copy it all the way down. Okay, so what we've got now is, as you can tell, as I go over each one, I've copied it after I've made this correction with the if statement. So it's kind of neat how you can error check those problems using if statements. So we're basically set now, I think, and we're going to worry about making this last calculation, the shipping and handling cost. Now this shipping and handling cost depends on this chart right in here. So what this is saying here is, depending on the weight of your package and who the courier is that you're going to use, it's going to be slightly different price. Okay, so this part's not going to be too bad. We're going to be able to look up based on these numbers, but then when we find these numbers, the weight, so to speak, how do we get these numbers here? Well, when you type in FedEx, UPS, whatever, I'm going to need to grab a number there, and that number is going to be incorporated in this formula, and that's where this new one comes into being. This is the HLOOKUP part of it. Now, I could have written this vertically and used a VLOOKUP, but I wanted just to show you an example of an HLOOKUP. So this table here, we're going to have to name it. Highlight all of this, the names and the numbers, and we'll give it a name. We'll call it courier. Then we'll go back to here. So you're going to type in one of the courier names there. Here's the formula, and we're going to use HLOOKUP, exactly like a VLOOKUP, and we're going to say G6, comma, courier, comma, 2, but 2 this time we go down it instead of across. All right, now there's nothing there. Let's type in UPS, and we get a 3. Now on to the last stage. Let's go back to the calculator. We're going to need to highlight all of this, okay, and we'll give it a name, and we'll call this one weights, and we'll return back to our invoice and work with the formula. Okay, let's put ourselves at shipping and handling. It's going to be a VLOOKUP bracket. It's all going to be based on the weight. So the total shipping weight is in D21. We're going to look it up in the weights, comma. Now how much to move over? Well, it'll depend on the number underneath the UPS, which is G7. Let's give it a try. 2435, and that's how you work it out. So you see the whole process now from beginning to end. It gets a little bit tricky, but that was a neat application that incorporated all kinds of different ideas. All right, just to make sure it works, let's rub that out and call it FedEx. Changes to a 2, and the shipping and handling costs change appropriately. All right, so there you have a nice little problem, especially the second one, that incorporates all kinds of different ideas to show you the real power of VLOOKUP. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next lecture.